What's up, and welcome to episode 171 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined by none other than Woody V. What's happening, man?
How are you, Robbie? Coming to the end of another basketball season, man, but still a lot of exciting storylines happening in the NBA and even in the NBL.
Absolutely. Plenty to talk about as always. Yeah, we're recording on Wednesday, the 18th of June. So, look, there may be one more game of NBA. We're hoping there'll be two. We'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all that stuff, just a reminder, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your audio podcast. So, all right, Woods, well, as always, we're going to start with some jerseys. So I see you're rocking that Celtics theme today. What do you got for us?
Okay, I'm just going to stand up.
Woods, stand up, rocking the Boston Celtics number 5. Kevin Garnett jersey. And the matching hat. What did KG say when they won that championship? Was he yelling
Anything is possible.
That's right. Yeah, that was great. Iconic moment, right?
Yeah, Ubuntu. Ubuntu, right? No, I listen to KG Certified a lot, and I like his podcast, Ticket and Truth Together. So I was just thinking, let's pay some respect to his name. So, I've said this before. You've said this before. Sit down for a while while I talk to you about his accolades, my man. But Kevin Maurice Garnett. Did you know that was his middle name?
I didn't actually. No.
Listed at 6'11", came straight out of college in 1995 as the 5th overall pick in the first round, and he was drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Had a career that spanned from 1995 to 2016 with the Minnesota Timberwolves, as I mentioned, the Boston Celtics, whose jersey I'm wearing, and then a brief couple of years with the Brooklyn Nets before finishing again at the Minnesota Timberwolves. So let me just go through his accolades. NBA champion in 2008. NBA's most valuable player in 2004. He was a 15-time NBA All-Star. He was the NBA All-Star Game MVP in 2003. He was a 4-time All-NBA first-team selection, a 3-time All-NBA second-team selection, a 2-time All-NBA third-team selection. He was the NBA Defensive Player of the Year in 2008. He was a 9-time NBA All-Defensive first-teamer. He was a 3-time NBA All-Defensive second-teamer. He was a 4-time NBA rebounding champion. He was on the NBA All-Rookie second team. He was on the NBA 75th anniversary team. And his number 5 was recently retired by the Boston Celtics. And when I think of KG, I think of a guy who played with so much passion and heart. Sometimes, always, not always, being nicest to his teammates. If he had to speak some harsh words to his teammates to get the best out of them, he was prepared to do that, right? A little bit in the mentality like Michael Jordan, I would say, right? Yeah.
That's it. And that's some resume. Did you say 4-time All-NBA first team?
That is exactly what I said. 4-time All-NBA first team.
Doesn't that show you how many good players are playing in those positions? Because you think someone like him, with that resume you read, then you think, he's probably had 6, 7 All-NBA first teams. So you had the likes of Tim Duncan, you had Dirk, you had Chris Webber, you obviously had the bigger guys than that, your Shaqs and all stuff like that. So, yeah, but what an amazing resume, right? I remember that MVP season fondly as well with Minnesota. He was amazing. It was like the Sam Cassell days and stuff, if I'm not mistaken, right? 2004.
MVP was 2004. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, no, he was a great player. It's funny, I've tried to maybe not have it in my memory. I can't even really picture him in that Brooklyn jersey now, which is surprising. Like you said, he finished off there and then went back to Minnesota. But yeah, great career. He's also was pretty good in that Uncut Gems movie as well, right? With
definitely. Yeah, he was great in that. Yeah.
Pretty sleeper movie. Adam
Sandler.
Get out and watch it.
Yeah, nice, great movie. Yeah, I forgot about that completely.
Definitely, yeah.
And Ticket and Truth. Their podcast, really good. Yeah.
And a nice match.
Certified. Certified.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that hat too. So
thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Nice. Interesting. We're talking about Celtics. I started on your recommendation watching the Celtics City show.
Yes,
so
nice.
5 episodes in. I think there's 9 total, so I've got 4 to go. So really good. It's one of those things. Like I feel like I knew a lot of the things they're talking about, but it's really well put together. I know Bill Simmons has had a lot to do with it, and just great hearing some of those old stories. Didn't Dave Cowan seem like a cool dude when they were talking about him and everything like that? And yeah, it starts off obviously with the era, the heydays in the 50s and 60s, and the lull in the Larry Bird draft. And I'm assuming it's going to end with that, most recent title and stuff last year. So, but yeah, definitely good. If people haven't seen it, Celtics City, it's called. It's a good watch.
The Bill Walton comeback story, that's covered heavily in there when he came and contributed to that championship. So that was
One
very
thing as well
interesting.
was all the racism stuff and the stuff from the
Yep.
late 70s and 80s. That was crazy, some of that stuff. And, Bill Russell telling stories how they couldn't go into places on the road and eat food and stuff. It's crazy to think the world was like that. But, yeah, good documentary. Recommend people checking that out. So, nice. Well, you've gone the All-NBA theme. I'm going an NBL theme, certainly for the jersey anyway. I'd love to say how I've had this jersey years or whatever, Woods. It actually arrived an hour and a half ago. So I saw it was on the way today. I thought, you know what, I'm going to wear this one. And kind of topical as well. This guy's been in the news a little bit. So I'll stand up and show you who I'm wearing today.
Thanks, Robbie. And for those who can't see, Robbie's wearing the Perth Wildcats number 10 Ben Henshall jersey. And yes, he has been in the news a little bit today, Robbie.
Topical news. Guess how much I paid for this jersey, by the way?
$40.
$30.
Nice, man.
Bargain, right? So this is a special edition one. This is actually the Hoops Fest Perth Wildcats Ben Henshall jersey from last year, a champion jersey, which we love that champion are involved in those. And yeah, look, the reason why I thought it would be topical, so he actually withdrew from the draft 2 days ago. So very interesting news there. I think it was on the last date that I think the college players had to withdraw by the end of May. Anyone that's played any form of professional basketball could withdraw now. So he's withdrawn from the draft. Obviously, the feedback he was getting that maybe he wasn't going to get selected, it might have been, the fact that he might have had to try as a free agent. His future's a little bit up in the air at the moment. So some are saying he might decide to go to NCAA. And otherwise, he may come back and play ball, maybe in the NBL, maybe with the Perth Wildcats, we don't know. A little bit on Henshall Wood. So, look, I know he's had some detractors. I know you and I've probably been a little bit high on him over the years than you have, but he really improved last year, right? So his court time improved from 6 minutes a game to 24 minutes. Ended up with averages last year of 9.5 points, 3.5 boards, 2.5 assists. So pretty solid. He's also someone that's grown literally 2 or 3 inches, in that time he's been with Perth. So I met him, as I've mentioned that story when I commentated the COE 2 years ago now. I was about the same height as him then when I had a chat with him and welcomed him to the Wildcats. He's listed at 6'6" without shoes now, so he's definitely grown a little bit further. So a good size for that sort of, big guard position there. Interesting story. I was kind of hoping he was going to stay in the draft. We've seen Malik Lewis pull out as well. Next star's coming back to South East Melbourne. Henshall's out now, so it's maybe not made the draft as exciting as I was hoping there. But what are your thoughts on Henshall, and maybe what should he do next?
Look, he came out and said he thinks he's a lottery pick. He thinks he's better than a lot of the guys in this draft, right? I think maybe that attitude has to change a little bit. Maybe I'm looking from afar and I don't know the whole story. Maybe he was just confident in backing his ability. But for every one guy that makes it, and gets drafted in the NBA, there's only 60 spots a year, right? There's a million that don't, right? So I think, how does this all work for Ben Henshall now? If he goes and declares, he goes to play in the NCAA, he can then declare for the draft, I presume, right?
For next year's draft, yeah. But
Yes.
he's already 20, so if he goes and plays college, I think by the time the draft in 2026 comes across, he'll be 22 then. So you know what I mean? That would be kind of an old draft pick. So you wonder now, I wonder if it might have been worth him doing like the Alex Dukas type thing, where he ended up just signing as a free agent. Alex Dukas has a chance of winning a championship in a couple of days or so, which he will get a ring if they win that, even though he's not part of their finals roster there. So I'm not sure. Look, I'd be really happy to have him back for the Wildcats. I think he's, potentially could get some more minutes there. We've lost pretty decent guard. Bryce Cotton, you may have heard of him. So there's a few more extra minutes to go around. Obviously, they're still looking for an import there, but he may have had a bigger role if he did decide to go back. And hopefully Perth's still in chats with him. Not quite sure totally with Perth's off-season game plan at the moment, but I guess we'll watch this space. NCAA is certainly something I've heard him talk about in the past, and it's something that maybe he wanted to be a part of that. So whether he goes somewhere and just plays that 1 year and tries to be an older sort of draft pick there, but yeah, wish him all the best. Look, we've still got some interest in this draft, don't we? And I should tease it as well, Woods. Next week's episode will only be a couple of days before the draft, so we'll do our normal preview. That thing where we pick out a couple of sleeper players or players to watch and that. But we've still got a chance of Alex Tui, Rocco Zikarsky, Tyrese Proctor, and Lachlan Albrick as well. So still a good Aussie contingent there. But yeah, a few people have dropped out, I guess, that we're maybe hoping, like your Alex Condons, your Ben Henshalls, and now even a next star and Malik Lewis there. And also heard Ethan Elmanza might have got in trouble or something off court today. So we've got to look into that a little bit further. And he was projected to go a little bit higher. He's actually moved up the boards a little bit lately. So we'll find out a bit more about that. But yeah, Ben Henshall, nice new one. I thought I had to get this in the collection anyway. So a little bit too small as well. They ran out of my size, but it'll do. All right, card of the week, Woods. I've got a cracker today. I really like this one. So it's a Topps 2007 Triple Threads card. So triple threads. It's actually numbered number 18 of 18. So the reason it's threads, it's got those jersey sort of patches on it. It's featuring three Hawks. So it's featuring none other than Dominic Wilkins, Josh Smith, and Josh Childress. So look how nice that card looks. Hopefully that sort of comes in the light. Can you get a decent look at that? That looks all right there, right?
Yep.
So Dominic, Josh Smith, and Jay Chill. Look how nice those patches are as well, Wood. So they're all patches of jerseys and stuff like that. So really nice. There's only 18 of these in the world. This is number 18 of 18. People seem to like the 1 of 18 or the 18 of 18. So yeah, just really like this one. I've had this one a long time now. I think I got this in 2007 when it came out, when I was going pretty hard on the Josh Smith cards, but always happy when I've got Dominic and Josh Smith on a card together. And this one's really nice. It's got a bit of a hologram there. It's kind of, moving around in the light and stuff like that. So yeah, a nice random one there. Any quick thoughts on Josh Childress, your former Sydney Kings player?
Man, I loved him before he even came to Sydney, right? As soon as he got drafted by our Hawks, I was a big fan of his game, right? One of the best bench players in the league as soon as he came into the NBA, and to just see him come to Sydney, people say that, a lot of great players and NBA players, fringe NBA players are coming to this league now, but it was Johnny Flynn's, the Josh Childresses, going back over a decade now that really started that extreme wave. Al Harrington came on the back of Josh Childress and things like that, right? So, yeah.
Do you think Jesse Wagstaff remembers him fondly? Or?
Definitely.
Probably not, right? Yeah.
Not fondly, but when he looks back on his career, that's a moment that'll stand out, right? Yeah.
Nice. All right, so some Kevin Garnett, some Ben Henshall, and then that triple threads card. Woods will put this up on the the socials next week. But loving that card. It's a nice one, right, Woods?
Awesome card, man.
Cool. Nothing too exciting.
Best one yet. Best one yet.
Yeah, definitely nice. That'll go back in my special card collection that I've got in the room. You've seen in that special case I've got. So straight back up there.
With the Dominic Wilkins rookie, right?
With all those ones, yeah. Nice. Well, since we last recorded, Woods, there's been 3 more games. So we recapped the first 2 games of the NBA playoffs. So we're going to go through games 3, 4, and 5 now and give a few thoughts there. So I'll just do a little recap of each one and maybe we'll get some thoughts. So we're going back to last Saturday now, so it feels a little while ago. So game 3. So look, despite us saying last week and doing a whole segment of why we thought OKC were going to probably win 4-1, Woods, this ended up being a classic win in Game 3 with the Pacers winning 116-107. That was behind a 32-18 fourth quarter. So this one will probably end up going downwards as the Ben Mathurin game. He had 27 points in 22 minutes. This is pretty remarkable. However, they wouldn't have got this win if it wasn't for the near triple-double by Tyrese Halliburton, who had 22, 9, and 11. Siakam had 21, 6, and 4. And my boy, TJ McConnell, 10 points, 5 assists, and 5 steals off the bench. He's had an amazing series there. So, look, for
was
OKC...
he the first player to ever do that?
He was. First player off the bench to get that
ever
stat.
do that,
so, yeah,
right?
He's creating history, good old Terrence John McConnell there.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a none there, right?
Yeah.
He was a none there.
Well, yeah. What a genius. What a playoffs he's having. Right? So OKC Big 3 all scored in the 20s. However, the bench in this game only put up a total of 18. So Indiana's bench had 49. Obviously, a lot of those came from Mathurin. But 49-18. We know how good that OKC bench is. So what are your thoughts looking back on this one, Woods? This was that weekend game we got to watch. I thought it was a pretty fun game. 116-107 Indiana. Give me some thoughts.
I think this was the Thursday game, right?
Thursday, Saturday. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
I was at the pub. I was at the pub.
Oh, yes. One. You actually remember it after you're at the pub all day?
Yeah. No, that was awesome, man. I had such a good time. There's a good contingent of fans from both sides there. Look, I mean, OKC seemed to be in control, like, for the majority of the game. They went into that fourth quarter, I think, with a slight lead from memory, or they seemed like they were in control of the game, right? And then you mentioned those guys, Ben Mathurin, Tyrese Halliburton, but they also went to Pascal Siakam in that fourth quarter, down the stretch, and he made some crucial buckets, and I think he had a 20-piece from memory. He didn't have a huge stat line, but he made some vital buckets for them down the stretch. Later on in the series, in the last 2 games, OKC figured out their fourth quarters. Like, a big problem for them in this series was, couldn't close out games. All the games they lost, they were in. But yeah, I mean, strong effort from Indiana to take a 2-1 lead. And at that point, you were thinking, geez, could they do this?
A lot of people were thinking this is going to be over in 5 games, right? And we saw this one, I'm like, wow. And then Indiana, like, could they win this sort of thing? This seemed to me, Woods, we've talked about it before in these games, the team whose role players seem to step up, and obviously we had Mathurin and TJ McConnell just putting up monster numbers between us. So yeah, this is a bit of a surprise, I guess. That takes us through to game 4, which was the Saturday game. So unfortunately, there's no more weekend games; they're all sort of workday games now. In game 4, OKC came back from 7 points down at three-quarter time to beat Indiana 111-104. So down 7 at three-quarter time, ended up winning by 7. So not great at maths, Woods, but that seems to be a 14-point turnaround.
Yeah, 31-17 the fourth quarter was
crazy, right? Yeah. So look, SGA came up huge late for OKC, didn't he? He scored 15 points in the last 4 minutes 38 on his way to a game by 35 points. Surprisingly, though, 0 assists in that game, which I almost had to double check that stat.
Well, that changed. He got his career high in the next game, right?
He did. So look, they also had huge games from J-Dub, 27, and Alex Caruso bounced back from a stinker in game 3 to have 20 points and 5 steals. He was huge for the Thunder in that game. For the Pacers, Siakam filled up the box score again on his way to 20. Halliburton, 18. Obi Toppin had an important 17 off the bench, and it looked like that might have been maybe the Obi Toppin game if they'd held on to that one. Look, as soon as that finished, Woods, I felt like this game was going to end up haunting Indiana. They seemed to control the game, up 7 at three-quarter time. What were your thoughts on that big game 4?
I think it was like, look, we've put all this effort in this season to get to where we are now. We may never have this opportunity to win a championship again, right? Yeah. We haven't learned to close fourth quarters out properly. We're down 2-1 in this series because of meltdowns in the fourth quarter, right? Yeah. SGA's like, look, give me the ball. I'm the MVP, right? Get out of the way. I'll go to work. And that's what he did, man. And, he put the team on his back. And, that kind of like buoyed the OKC team going into game 5, knowing that, look, we can do this now. We can close out these games. They figured something out in that last 6-7 minutes of that game, man. And you could just see, okay, Indiana's probably in a bit of trouble now, right?
And that must still have affected Indiana. Look, they were, literally minutes away from being up 3-1, which would have been crazy, right, to think that. I mean, there was people picking this to be a sweep. I think all along we said a gentleman's sweep. Obviously, we're going to be wrong with that. We might end up being a game wrong with that. But, to kind of have all those leads and, look, to be up 7 at three-quarter time and seemingly be in control of that game there, it was... You're right, the MVP showed why he's the MVP, put the team on his back. Yep. I mean, 18 points in less than 5 minutes. I mean, he was hitting threes. He wasn't a huge three-point shooter, is he? He was hitting threes with pretty good D on him and stuff. And, he was great in that game. And that basically evened the series at 2-2. So first thing I thought after that is like, cool, we now get a 3-game series, right, which is always good. It's going to go to at least 6 there. And that brings us to the most recent game, which was game 5, which took place yesterday. So, look, for me, Woods, this felt like the game we'd be maybe expecting from OKC. A lot more high scoring for them. They ran out 120-109 winners. They were leading at every break. This is the J-Dub game, right? So he was simply amazing. 40 points. SGA wasn't far behind with 31 and also ran the team a lot better, as I mentioned, with 10 assists. Role players, again, another part of this. They got big games from Cason Wallace and Andrew Wiggins, with the two of them combining for 25 points. Now, Wallace had started in a couple of those games in the series. He'd had a pretty bit of a shocker up to then. He was huge, hitting threes, getting steals and running down and getting dunks and that. So Wiggins seems to have those good home games, doesn't he? It seems to be his sort of domain there. Yep. Siakam was big again for Indiana. He had 28, so he was pretty solid. He also had 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. So nothing else he could have done. TJ McConnell, ridiculous, amazing off the bench. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in only 22 minutes. And you wonder if you maybe should have played a little bit more, because Tyrese Halliburton was a talking point of this game. So 4 points and was shockingly none of 6 from the field. Now, look, he was due to undergo an MRI today on his calf, and he did seem to be restricted in that game. Fun fact, as I mentioned in our group chat, Woods, Johnny Furphy had more field goals in this game than Tyrese Halliburton. Crazy to think he got 4 in this game. Their defense was swarming with him. Lou Dort, my goodness, that guy's a good defender. Give me some thoughts on this big game 5 win from OKC.
All right, let's start with that Halliburton no-show, right? I mean, it has a bit of a question mark against it because of that injury, right? As you said, man, he was Dort was killing him, and he didn't find that easy at all. But the problem I have is TJ McConnell. You mentioned he came in and he was ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
The old school game, man. He loves that dribble, gets to that mid range, shoots over the 7-footer, man. He's just methodical in the way he goes about things.
Yeah.
Why was he not playing in the fourth quarter, man?
Yeah.
You put him. Why can't he and Hallie play together more, man?
All the commentators mentioned it, didn't they? Why has he been off so long? I love the way he gets to the rim. Woods. He's obviously,
Man, he's
you think of
awesome.
someone that size, he's not a great outside shooter. He did hit a 3 in that game and barked to someone you better guard. But he kind of goes in, he kind of rises up and then puts his body back and shoots it. And he's obviously used to playing against these massive giants. But what a playoff series he's had in general, right?
When he dribbled into the key, did that spin move and finished with the left hand. You remember that? I was like yelling at the screen, razzle dazzle, TJ.
And then picks up his man full court after that. He's just, I mean, everything could do with a TJ McConnell. I mean, here's a question for you, out of left field. If you were Hawks and you could trade someone to get TJ McConnell, who would you give up to get him? Would you trade Clint Capella for him? If there was no salaries included, would you trade? I don't want to make it too you wouldn't trade on Yehira Conway for him. No. Harris LeVert?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would as well.
Yeah, because he stays healthy, man.
Yeah,
right?
And he'd work well with Trey, but I don't think Indiana's given up TJ McConnell anytime soon. I mean, he's a fan favourite, a team favourite, and he's just one of the amazing playoffs.
He's turned into one of the best bench players in the NBA. Let me just go back to J-Dub, man. Seriously, this kid, firstly, let me talk about the interviews he gives, right? When he gives his interviews, he doesn't seem like he's 24 or 25 or however old he is. He seems like he's got a lot of maturity. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and someone who can be a leader in the future. But what we're seeing here is he was just a co-star, right? He was the Robin to Shea being Batman, right? Yeah. But we saw him turn into Batman basically. And Shea was like, look, okay, this guy's going, right? So let me distribute the ball a little bit more, find my teammates. And we mentioned it earlier, had the 10 dimes, J-Dub's getting 40. I did not... OKC wouldn't have ascended to where they are now if J-Dub didn't have that ascension himself, right?
Do you think he's one of the better two-way players in the game right now? Because he's probably almost an underrated defender, I would have thought. I mean, maybe not. People know he's a good defender, but he's just perfect at both ends. He can shoot. He can handle the ball. I mean, if you had to pick a weakness in him, you'd be really being nitpicky trying to find one because he's just a complete package, isn't he? It's been great seeing what he's... I think maybe a couple of people were surprised that he made that All-NBA team this year. I think it was All-NBA third team. Maybe people were like, oh, really? But no. I think he'll be a player that you see there for years to come.
Very unassuming. He just goes about his business. I've said that before. He might have 5 assists one night. He might have 3 steals the next night. He'll have a 40-piece the next night, right? And you want players like that on your team. I guess one more takeaway from Game 5, Robbie, that I had was basically OKC, they figured it out in the fourth again. Right, you saw that, right? They just ran away with the game.
What did they? Indiana got it back to 3
they
or 4.
They did. They got it back to
here we
3.
go again. But they did. They figured it out.
Yeah,
and why did they figure it out? Do you think?
I just think after what happened in that previous game with SGA putting the team on his back, showing them that, look, we can do this. I'm here, And then, J-Dub was having the night of his life. And on the back of all of that happening, the teammates were galvanized by that and said, we ain't losing this game, right? We're putting this one away early in the fourth quarter, right? And then we can have some breathing space, and that's what we saw. So it's very likely that we're going to see a continuation of that. And a lot of the wind in the tires of the Pacers is going to be, let go now. And
if I said to you, Woods, Wallace and Wiggins would have combined for 25, you probably would have thought they would have won here in that right. If you get those role players getting 25 points combined there, when you think Halliburton had 4 points himself.
One more thing. Wallace, amazing in the passing lanes. Caruso, all these guys playing great defense, but Nembhard was just throwing the ball to anyone. He's just giving it away, man. Turnovers after turnovers. Pascal Siakam's just turning the ball over. It's just not paying attention to detail, not caring. These errors in a game like this, they're gonna cost you, man. And Nembhard was just all over the place, man. Just literally throwing it to guys for free layups and dunks, man. Right?
Hey, one thing we should say, and I know this came up in the broadcast coverage as well, this is the second youngest finals team of all time. So the youngest team was that Portland Trailblazers team with Bill Walton and Maurice Lucas that won the title in 77, I think it was, 78, 77, just before I was born there. This is pretty amazing, right? So I think their oldest players, Kenrich Williams, who barely plays, but this core of this team, I mean, if they can keep them together, obviously, players' values go up if they are to win. Let's not rule out Indiana straight away yet, but this could be a bit of a dynasty, right, with this younger team.
Yeah, look, I mean, we talked about you talked about how many MVPs do you think SGA can win, right? I mean, it goes with this team's success. He could win three MVPs if this team continues, and
Yeah.
as you said, this young core. Obviously, the price is going to get higher for some of these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Especially once you've won that title as well. You're like, you know what, I've won now. Now I want to get paid a little bit. I think sometimes you're prepared to maybe run it back if you're trying to win one. I mean, who would be some guys that could potentially be like that? Maybe
Hassan Wallace, man, for example,
Andrew
perfect.
Wiggins, maybe those sort of guys.
Aaron Wiggins.
Chet's going to need re-upping soon, right?
Yeah.
He's going to command a pretty big salary as well. So, yeah, it's interesting to see if they can. But they do seem a very strong, team that love being around each other. So maybe that's something you take a few less dollars to play with your mates and play with a team that, let's face it, could be a bit of a dynasty there. So, well, let's finish it offwards with how the series is going to go from here, right? So, Game 6 is Friday our time. Game 7, if required, is Monday Australian time. So, is this getting finished in Game 6? Does it all depend on Tyrese Halliburton? Give me some thoughts there.
I think so. I mean, I just mentioned it there, like that fourth quarter that they'd figured out, right? How to close out the games properly, right? Tyrese Halliburton's got this injury. As I said, a lot of the they'll feel deflated after those 2 losses in a row and what's happened, right?
Yeah.
So the momentum's with OKC, so I predict that they'll probably close this out in a tight game on Friday.
I think so too. I mean, look, Indiana's been amazing, haven't they? They've really had a special playoff series. I feel like they're still going to go into next season and people aren't going to be picking them to, even be top 2 or 3 in the East, which, they're a team that they probably thrive on being a little bit, disrespected there. But yeah, look, if Halliburton, even if he plays, he's clearly not 100%. They're going to lose a lot from him there. I mean, yeah, he was really closely guarded. He was obviously pretty bothered there. He's not going to normally have a game like he did there with none of 4 from the field. So, look, I'd love for it to go to Game 7. I want an extra game. I hate it this time of year when the NBA is about to finish, but I agree. I think it will go. It will finish on Friday on Indiana's home court, which is interesting there. But yeah, look, it's been a good series. We've got a question in our true and false about that later, but yeah, looking forward to Game 6, and that was fun recapping that with you, mate. So
yeah, it was. Yeah,
good work. All right, we've got a few quick hits now, Woods. Now, this trade did happen a few days ago. You did put on our messaging today about this trade. I'm like, come on, bro, that was 2 days ago.
Yeah,
did you hear that Bryce Cotton?
I've been living under a rock for the last few days.
Oh, good. I like making it teasing you when I can. So, yeah, for those who haven't heard, we had a very random trade with the season still going. I believe we might have had one last year. I was trying to find that today. I couldn't quite find it out. But it was a big trade between Memphis and Orlando. So, the transaction involved Memphis trader Desmond Bane to Orlando for KCP, Cole Anthony, 4 unprotected first-round picks and 1 first-round pick swap. So that happened a couple of days ago. So my initial thoughts when I saw this was, I was like, wow, they've given up a lot to get Desmond Bane, right? So a little bit on that one. So Orlando also sent their number 16 pick in this year's draft, and then it'll be a 2026 first-round pick, and there's pick swaps and other sort of things like that. When I first read, I'm like, wow, that's maybe a little bit to give up. But when I looked into it further, right, I think Desmond Bane, the old T-Rex there, he could be exactly what Orlando need. I mean, for those that don't know, he had an amazing season last year. He was close to 19 points, 6 boards, also averaged over 5 assists, which that surprised me, that fact alone. So he's someone that's improved every game, every season. Orlando was last in 3-point percentage last season, Woods. This season, I should say. Desmond Bane's pretty much always going to shoot in the 40s there. I think he's exactly what that team needs. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP, I know you're a fan. He really fell off a cliff this year. I think they'd be happy to get rid of his $22 million a year contract. Cole Anthony can be replaced. And look, I think they're banking on 4 unprotected first-round picks. If Orlando go as well as probably what they think they will, and maybe what we think they will, they're not going to be great picks. They're going to be in the mid-20s, those sort of picks. So, yeah, give me some thoughts on this trade.
Well, firstly, I think Memphis. You're right. He did have a great regular season, Desmond Bane, right? But this first round playoffs versus the OKC, there were some glaring holes shown in his game, right? He was shooting. He couldn't get a shot off. He couldn't even dribble the ball, because the great defensive lineup that OKC was stifled him. So I think they lost a bit of confidence in Desmond Bane on the back of that first round. But at the same point, they got a good. You don't know what those 4 picks are going to turn into, right? It could. And one of them is going to be Phoenix's picks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And Phoenix
is like the pick swap, Washington or Phoenix. They're going to end up.
Yeah, and Phoenix could potentially have a really good pick next year. They could be really bad, right? So, it could turn into something good. But I do agree with your sentiment that Franz Wagner Paolo Banchero, right? You put
Jalen Suggs
Desmond
coming
Bane,
back in
Jalen
bulk here.
Suggs. Oh man, you put
They've
those
got-
guys together, you've got a nucleus of a really good team there, man.
Yeah.
So I think they've done well. Memphis, I'm not sure what they're really doing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you got a healthy JJJ, a switched on healthy Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. You got a lineup of three guys that can take you deep into a playoff run, right?
Yeah.
So
I
I'm a
think
bit
Triple
surprised.
J, they know they've got to lock him up soon. He's going to command a lot of money. I think he would have been entitled to more had he made that All NBA third team. He didn't make it, but he's going to get paid. Let's face it, right? He's one of the best defensive bigs in the league. He's a 20-point a game scorer. Still could get a few more rebounds. We've spoken about that before, but yeah, maybe it was just a thought in their mind they couldn't afford to bring all three of them back. They've got some decent young pieces as well. We should add, Jalen Wells, Zach Edey, those sort of guys.
Yep.
And they did get rid of Marcus Smart's big salary. They dumped him to Washington in the trade deadline last year. So maybe it's a mini rebuild for them. Maybe sort of a year or two going down. Who knows? But yeah, I like that for Orlando. That was their obvious thing in the playoffs, right? They lacked outside shooting. I mean, they had guys like KCP and Cole Anthony slinging up a lot of shots, but they weren't necessarily making them. So I think they've done well. I mean, we've seen some of these trades with teams giving up a lot of first-round picks. We saw Utah and Minnesota with the Rudy Gobert trade. We saw Brooklyn and New York with the Bridges trade. So sometimes you've got to give up. It seems a lot on paper, but you're banking on being good and those picks not being high picks. But yeah, I'm going to have to say I'm going to give Orlando the winning grade for that one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But having said, well, you just mentioned Jalen Wells. That's a good point you bring up. Yeah, I think he could eventually be a better player than Desmond Bane, man.
That guy was
Yeah,
awesome
he's going to be awesome. So I think the confidence that the Memphis front office have in him developing over the next few years made it easier for them to part ways with someone like Desmond Bane. But you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
That's it. So a bit of a trade out of a bit of a surprising one, that one, but yeah, an interesting one nevertheless. As I mentioned, we'll certainly do a big preview of the draft next week, and if there's any sort of moves that come through, I think they probably won't be a lot more until that free agency starts at the start of July, but we'll keep an eye on that. A little bit of NBL news to finish off this quick hits, Wood. So we saw the news yesterday that Adelaide have essentially filled up their roster now. So signing Zylan Cheatham. Of course, he played with New Zealand in 2024, played in Japan this year. So he's another one of those guys that's got links to Coach Wells there, right, from Utah days, I believe. So he obviously must be a pretty good coach. He's making that impact on people. But I know you're a fan of Cheatham. What were your thoughts on that move there?
Love him. He plays with high energy. He fits in that front court alongside Montrezl Harrell. In fact, let me ask you a quick question. Let me put you on the spot. Give me your Adelaide 36ers starting five right now.
I think it writes itself there. So you've got DJ and Bryce in the backcourt, you've got Flynn Cameron, and then you've got Cheatham and Trez, and then you've got Isaac Humphries as your six man. So I mean that is a stronger six. I think Olgun Illich came out today and said that in all his time covering, that's easily the most money that's been spent on a team. I know you're a very big Isaac Humphries fan, and maybe you're a little bit. You mentioned to me, where does that leave Humphries now? What are your thoughts? And do you agree with that starting five? I've known.
I think there's food for thought that Montrezl Harrell comes off the bench.
Oh, no way. Nah. What about, could you play the three bigs together? Could you play Cheatham at three, play Trez and Isaac at 4 and 5? You couldn't do that?
No way, man. No way.
Maybe
no
against
way.
some teams? Could you do it case by case? Or?
Man, like you basically got 3, 7, 6. Oh,
I like Flynn Cameron as a six man. That's what I'm saying.
I guess
then you have a small backcourt and a big front court. It maybe evens out.
You'd have to play Montrezl Harrell at 6'6" at the 3, right? And you'd play Isaac Humphries at center and Zylan Cheatham at power forward potentially.
Montrezl Harrell's playing in the big three right now as well, which is pretty cool. Did you see some of the highlights on that on the weekend? Lance Stevenson and Dwight Howard getting in a fight was pretty funny. So yeah, Montrezl is actually playing in that, so getting some good reps up for that. But look, they've completed their roster really early, haven't they? I mean, we're just over halfway through June, and their roster's done. They got Isaac White in free agency. They've strengthened up their bench and everything there. So they certainly seem the team to beat on paper, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. They're the team to beat, right? Along with the Kings. Yeah.
So yeah, good move there. He was someone that we both liked in that 2024 Breakers team. And I think they wanted to get him back this year, but he obviously got that money in Japan. But yeah, good to see that announced there. A couple other things, Wood. So we heard announced the NBL Hoops Fest is returning to Perth in January 2026, which is good news there. Also, some further news today about a new mid-season tournament called the Ignite Cup, which I'll just let you know about this, Woods, for those that haven't heard. So just got announced today. This is going to be a new in-season tournament, which is set to reshape Wednesday nights and add 21 extra games on the basketball schedule. So it's going to be heavy Wednesday night thing. Don't mind Wednesday nights, Woods. There's not a whole lot going on Wednesdays normally for us, I would have thought. So the games start from October the 8th. The games will be played each Wednesday night and will count towards the regular season standings. There's a new quarter-by-quarter scoring system which will keep a separate Ignite Cup ladder. Then there'll be obviously a champion of that. Winning prize pool of 400,000. Winning team takes home 300. Runner-up takes home 100. Look, I think obviously they've used the NBA mid-season tournament as a bit of a thing to sort of follow, I guess. What are your thoughts on hearing that news today?
Are they going to get the courts all coloured?
Ooh, yeah, I hadn't heard of that. That's going to cost some extra money if they do that, but haven't heard that part.
My thoughts are about 21 more games a season. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what's that going to be? Like each team plays, I don't know the exact maths on me right now, but it probably ends up being, a 34, I don't know, something like that, 35 game season potentially. But yeah, which I don't mind. My also thinking is, no one's really going to follow the tournament that closely. What is it, quarter by quarter? Like
it's one of those things they're going to keep like a running tally of like quarter wins and points and stuff like that. I mean, pretty good money. Would
sure.
Like 300,000 for the winning team. That's pretty right. And we've seen in the NBA for those guys that maybe aren't on a lot of money. Some of the DPs, bench guys, and that sort of stuff. They're going to be doing everything they can to get a share of that prize pool there. So I don't mind it. Look, it's something different. I like the fact that they're focusing on one night, and they've obviously seen Wednesday night as a night that doesn't compete with a lot of other things, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I'm happy to see how it goes. The Ignite Cup, I don't know where they pluck that name out of there, but yeah. So Hoops Fest, I know you've mentioned you'd like to go next year. I'm maybe up in the air whether I can. You'd probably go, do you reckon, though? Or?
January's a better time, right? But it's also cricket season, and the Ashes is on, so I'll have to see. I would have more preferred to go if it was at the start of the year, right? But I'll consider it.
Yeah. Like if it was this October thing that this Ignite Cup starting from, it'd be something like that. But yeah, look, good to see the NBL getting in the news now and these sort of things. So yeah, thought we'd sort of bring everyone up to date with that. So well, that brings us through some quick true and false woods. I'm sure you're going to love the first one I've got here. So the first one has been a hot topic in the Clayton household, I've got to say, for this last couple of weeks. So the Perth Wildcats' new logo is one of the worst things ever designed. True or false?
False. I don't mind it. Like, I don't think it's. I mean, everyone's going on about this is not creative. What is it, like the Wildcat roaring or something like that? That's what it looks like, right?
It's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've said to you about this, right? I do think it's been copied off a couple of things. The AFL Tasmania team, it's a similar logo. Whatever that thing that Zac Efron was on, High School Musical or something, you have a look at the logo of the team on that, basically exactly the same. I don't know, Woods. I mentioned this to you as well. What's something in common that some of the great NBA teams have, right? The Celtics, the Lakers, the Bulls, Pistons, those sort of teams, they keep the same logo, right? They don't need to change things like that, gimmicky sort of things like that. Perth Wildcats are the greatest NBL team quite easily, and that's not even me being at home there. They are. So why are we changing our logos and stuff? It feels like one of these things they're trying to start afresh. The Bryce era's finished. We're going to have a new logo, new jerseys. Yeah, Woods is putting it up now. So, yeah, I don't love it. I liked our old logo. And look, I think the fans are pretty much speaking, Woods. Every time you see any form of comments, on social media, the fans are ripping into this, including my mum, who's basically on all these things leaving comments saying she doesn't like it, she's not going to buy merchandise. So people can see it there, people can give their sort of own thoughts, but yeah, not a big fan. So it's a true for me. It's one of the worst things ever designed.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. The next one, Giannis Antetokounmpo will return to the Milwaukee Bucks next season.
I'd say false. Like, I don't see any point in that happening. Do you?
I'm going to say true. I think he's one of those rare sort of guys, maybe a little bit like Dirk, that I think he's definitely ingrained in the community there. That's been his home for a long time. They've given him that start. They drafted him when so many teams passed on him back then. I wouldn't be surprised if they work something out and he does come back there. Interesting to see. I mean, there'll be a lot of dominoes that fall if he does go somewhere. It's not a true or false question, but I might as well ask you this while we're talking about it. A lot of rumours about Kevin Durant, right? He's mentioned if he's going to be traded, he'd like it to be Houston, San Antonio, or maybe Miami as a third choice. Where would you like to see him end up if he's leaving Phoenix?
I mean, Houston seems like a good fit, and there's some pieces there that they can work things out with.
Yeah.
San Antonio wouldn't be bad either. I don't like Miami. I think,
I don't like
you're just sending him into
I think
retirement
as well. Yeah, I think they've got enough young players they could give something up. We'd obviously have to look at that there, but yeah, obviously that's going a little bit away from true false. I just thought I'd mention that though. So, all right. So you think Giannis won't return to the Bucks? I think he will.
I think with Milwaukee as well, quickly, to go back to that, we got the injury to Lillard. He's going to be out for most of next season, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to be fighting for a championship next year. It makes complete sense for both parties to part ways so that they can get some assets back for Giannis potentially, and Giannis can go and search for more glory, championship glory, right? Yeah.
You are putting forth a good argument, I must say. So, all right, nice one. So next one, true or false? New York should go with a new or former head coach rather than trying to talk with seemingly every coach that is currently signed to an NBA team.
True.
I agree. So, look, there's talks that come out. Taylor Jenkins, who, of course, Memphis sacked last year, which is a bit of a shock.
Which I didn't understand.
No, and Mike Brown's the other name that came out. So he's been around a while. Obviously, he was with Sacramento last. Guys that have had decent success there. I like the Jenkins move there, but I don't like this thing that they've been trying to get permission to talk with every coach. That's been a bit random, right?
Yeah, there's ethical issues there as well, and I also think that someone like Mike Brown, you just mentioned that name. Let me just pick that apart for a second. Yeah. Yes, he's had a lot of opportunities, but his last little stint with Sacramento, I think he was a bit unceremoniously dropped too quickly when he actually brought that franchise back. He's done some really good work with that Nigerian national team. I think he's a much better coach now than he was in those Cleveland days, and he could be someone to look at.
It does seem like maybe both those guys do deserve a second chance, and maybe that will be one of those guys. Look, it's a tough job, isn't it? Being a coach with that sort of media and expectations that team's got, especially after going to a conference final. So very interesting. We'll see. Follow that with interest there. And the last one, Woods, the NBA Finals has been much better than expected.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great fun.
Definitely true.
One thing I will say, the caveat is there's been not a lot of buzz around it, though. It'd be everywhere, or I just feel like it's, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as
that was probably always the case, though, right? With two really small market teams, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as SGA is the MVP, he's still not a household name, is he? I mean, you could ask, like, for example, I don't think our wives would know SGA, would they?
No.
They would know, like your Kevin Durant's, your LeBron's, these sort of older sort of players. I don't think they'd quite.
I don't reckon my wife would even know Durant. She'd know.
Really?
She'd know LeBron James.
We'll have to have a chat with her next time I see her. But maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's more the casual fans. I think the diehard fans like us who have been up for it. And look, we mentioned the playoffs up to the finals. We weren't quite loving it, but I've enjoyed it. I think there's been 5 really good games so far. Hopefully we get 2 more good ones, and obviously we'll see what happens there. So, all right. Any further thoughts before we get to an outro? It's been a good one. Plenty to talk about. Anything else you want to get off your chest or anything?
No, not really. Really fun episode. You got some NBL 1 commitments coming up you want to speak about? Yeah,
so nothing this weekend. We do have Bankstown coming to the Hive to play the Mighty Hills Hornets next weekend. So looking forward to that, Wood. So the Bankstown women's team's got Shyla Hill, who just signed with Bendigo in the WNBL for next season. And the men's team's got Jason Kadee and Jalen Galloway. So really looking forward to see those guys. Make sure you go. I know you said plenty of times on the show you're coming and you haven't come, but I know you're definitely coming for this one.
Yeah, I'm coming for sure. I'm coming for the next 2.
Yeah, and look, I did the 2 games last weekend. It was the biggest ever win for the Hills women's team. They took on Leilani Mitchell and the Central Coast Crusaders, who were missing a host of players there, and they ran out 40-point winners. Wasn't as good for the men there. They did take on Central Coast. They were up, I think, 8 at three-quarter time, ended up losing, so it was almost like that Indiana game we talked about from the weekend there. But look, the men's team's still a chance in the finals hunt. I'm actually taking my daughter out on Sunday to watch the Hornsby NBL 1 game. So we're going to the old brick pit at Thornlea. We're going to watch a game there. So if anyone's in the area, come and say hi. So yeah, it's exciting. Looking forward to see that. And Jessie May Horwoods, who's one of the absolute guns, rising stars of women's basketball in this country, plays for Hornsby. Looking forward to see her up close and personal. So nice. Well, it's a bit of an outro. As I mentioned at the start of the show, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on X at Throwback Hoops. Look forwards to put this up and some jersey pics later on in the week or early next week. Instagram throwback.hoops and our email address throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Send us through some ideas. We're obviously going to have some off-season shows. It's going to be that bit of a lull period. We might have the odd week or 2 off, but that'll sort of depend on news coming through or anything like that. We're always kind of available if anything happens. Woods, I'm going to give you some homework. Put together an international team that could be in contention for the All-Star game next year. So not sure if I mentioned I put a short list together and I got up to 32 players. So I've got 32 players and I'm going to go through and put that to 12. So maybe you can do that.
So we're going to go with 12 players. All right.
We'll go with 12. Yeah, okay, go with 12. So and don't worry too much when you're doing it. Don't worry too much about positions. Just get the best 12. One thing I did notice about that team, a lot of big guys that can handle the ball. So
I'm definitely worrying about positions.
Yeah, okay, we can. But it was hard. Look, 32, there's probably at least 10 I can knock off straight away, but it's going to be hard to get it to 12. And a couple of these Canadian guys that are playing in the finals will feature in the team, no doubt, as well. And I feel like you've got to get Josh Giddey or Dyson Daniels in. One of those two's got to make it. We've got to have an Aussie in this game.
I'll have to do. You've done a little bit more research than me.
It was fun to do
it.
actually. I just went through each team and like, right, Atlanta, who we got? Reece O'Shea, Clint Capella, and sort of all that stuff.
I'll do it this week, man.
Nice. Patreon, if you want to pledge a few dollars to support us, with all the production and costs associated with this, we'd be greatly appreciative. Throw it over to yourself, Woods. Give you some thoughts on Game 6 and you think it's going to be a close game, you said earlier.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game, but I think that OKC might just get it done. But we all want to see more basketball. So if it does go to a Game 7 in a few days' time from now, then I wouldn't be disappointed either. Yeah.
Hey, have you bought a Tumani Kamara jersey yet? I know that's been on the...
Oh, no, I haven't.
Right?
I will, man.
Okay.
I will.
You get that. I really want to get an Obi Toppin Pacers jersey.
Sick,
I've had a few Pacers jerseys. I want to get one of those. So maybe we'll do an order. We'll link up and we'll save on some postage. You can get your Kamara. I'll get my Obi Toppin jersey. So... All right, nice one, Woods. That was really fun. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Can't wait to be on again next week. We'll certainly recap whatever happens in Game 6 and Game 7 if it happens. We'll also preview the draft. But until next week, it's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew.
Bye, guys.